Dr. Najy Masri here with us on Off the Bench. Doc, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys.
I guess we'll start it off how we started each segment each week. Just an update on the numbers since the last time we spoke with the pandemic.
Yeah, we've been going through this for about a month now as a community, so it's an interesting time to kind of look back. Just 3 weeks ago, we were at about 1,000 cases. 2 weeks ago, we went up to 4,000 cases. Last week, 13,000 cases. Now we've hit that 20,000 case plateau. We've had 840 deaths. For the first time, I can tell you all, there's a case in every parish. All 64 parishes now in Louisiana have a case. But let me offer everyone a glimmer of hope. One thing I will tell you all is in the hospital settings, both here locally in New Orleans and Baton Rouge, and talking to my colleagues, we're starting to see it slow down finally a little bit. So what that tells me really is that the at-risk population, the older patients, those with high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, those are really taking this seriously and staying at home and starting to follow, the principles of social distancing and home quarantine. And that's how we're going to have to look at this, not day by day, because the daily rate doesn't really tell us our daily infection rate because of the different times that we get the test back. But probably week by week, we need to start looking at it and seeing the trend and the net change week by week to see if we're having an impact. But it looks like in the hospital setting, at least, social distancing and home isolation is working.
Dr. Masri, last week when you were on, you mentioned the impending kind of Baton Rouge spike. Did we see that spike over here in Baton Rouge? And what do you think going forward for the 225? What is it going to look like?
So Baton Rouge has kind of become a minor second epicenter. Orleans and Jefferson Parish are still probably the two major ones. Baton Rouge now has over 1,200 cases of coronavirus. East Baton Rouge Parish now has the third most deaths in the state behind Orleans and Jefferson. Again, so I don't want people to get staggered by the numbers as much as the trends that we're seeing. Certainly some of it is population. The denser the population in the community, the more cases we're going to see. But even in the Baton Rouge area, and talking to my colleagues there, I think we're starting to see a glimmer of hope, and that it's starting to slow down.
Doc, thought about all the medical professionals yesterday. Obviously, with the holiday, been thinking about you guys a lot. But what did the impact of Easter have on the weekend?
So the true question is, did everyone maintain the parameters of social distancing before and during Easter? Just driving around the city over the weekend, I saw, again, a lot of cars in grocery parking lots going to and from the hospital on Easter Sunday. A lot of cars congregated in front of certain houses. If you go back to any of the pandemics in the past, go back to 1918 with the Spanish flu, as soon as we loosened the parameters of social distancing and home quarantine, there was always a second spike. And so, look, this virus doesn't take a vacation. Just because it's Easter doesn't mean it's going to sleep. Everyone needs to maintain a civic responsibility to keep this virus at bay, or we're going to be dealing with this for a much longer time than we need to.
Comes from a question inside of our listeners, inside the huddle. Brian Burgess writes in, can we ask Dr. Najy, does he think that the stay-at-home order will extend into May?
I think so. I think we're going to see some variation of that order. I don't see that we're going to see a true decrease in the number of cases until we get to the latter half of the summer. So the idea here is going to be for the state to figure out a efficient way to start loosening the parameters. It cannot be an all-cause go for everything all at once. So I do think we're going to have a stay-at-home order that's going to be extended a little while. The gathering rule is going to be extended a little while, and slowly life will come back to normal. People just have to be patient. I know it's tough from a personal, social, economic situation, but again, this is the balance of life and health versus normalcy. And so we're just going to have to be patient and ride the wave. But I think as we move forward through the summer, we're going to get a looser and looser restriction.
Dr. Masri, the CDC came out and they are now, I believe, recommending the wearing of masks in public. Obviously, a few weeks ago, this was kind of up in the air because it was like you don't want to take away the supply from medical professionals. Now there's all kind of do-it-yourself masks. What is the current recommendation as far as masks are concerned for the general public?
So last week, the CDC released a statement saying that they wanted the public to wear a cloth face mask. It could be a home face mask that's made. It could be something that they have at home in the public setting where close contact is going to get to the point where social distancing cannot be maintained. So A couple of things on that. A mask is fine with me, but it is not a replacement for staying at home.
Mm-hmm.
You would be much safer at home than you would be in the public in a mask, and it's certainly not a replacement for social distancing. Just because you have a mask on doesn't mean you can congregate in groups. Now, let's remember how this virus is transmitted. The main way is through coughing with respiratory droplets. There's no data to show that a standard cloth face mask is going to protect you against the respiratory droplets that are emitted by a cough. And then remember, on the contact with affected surfaces, 24 hours on cardboard, 72 hours on glass and stainless steel, 5 days on wood, metal, paper, rubble. This virus is tough. This virus is well prepared. This virus is resilient. It's like we're dealing with like a Nick Saban coach virus here. It's not going to go away very easily.
I'm not convinced. I don't know. Somebody needs to do the research, connect the dots. Nick could be behind all of this.
Speaking of Saban, college football, and sports, what type of effect do you see this having on the NFL draft, or at least the preparation for the draft?
I think this was really a culture shock to everybody, and everyone took this virus seriously when the NBA canceled the season on March 11th.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Remember, even for us locally here, the Pelicans had just beat the Heat. They beat the Mavs that weekend. They were in Sacramento. We were excited about seeing them catch the Grizzlies. Then the NCAA followed suit, and it really was a culture shock to everybody, whether you're a sports fan or not. So far, the NFL has kind of stayed on schedule. Free agency started on time with some tweaks. The draft is going to go on time with some tweaks. I think Roger Goodell just announced he's going to announce his picks from the basement. So I still think there's greater than 50% chance that his own wife and kids will probably boo him after he announces each pick. The players themselves, the teams, I mean, think about it from their point of view. There's no face-to-face interviews. There's no pro days. The injured players now cannot get a medical from the team. So it's going to really affect the injured players that a team's private physician cannot evaluate them. And teams can't see how they truly assimilate into their system. So each team's going to be limited. But I think the Saints are going to be in a better situation than most. I mean, we all know that their mojo is to fill all their needs in free agency. So the fact that they can go best player available allows them to look at a bigger pool of players than having to focus on the position of need. But this is where I think the virus could be a big disadvantage, is the fact that there's a very good chance that this is Brees' last season. And if this virus impacts this incoming season in any way, it's going to be disastrous for the Saints. It's going to be disastrous for the Saints fans. Look, this city, this state has been through enough. We had the rebirth year after Katrina, and we really need a repeat year, a repeat Super Bowl year after this COVID-19 is all over.
Yeah, so do it for football. Do it for Brees and Brady. We need the Nola no call screwed up the first round that we should have gotten from them. We're getting 2 rounds this year if we all stay inside and do what Dr. Maz is telling us to.
Dr. Maz, one lasting message for our listeners and for this room before we get you out of here and talk to you next week.
No, again, I just preach patience. There's going to be a time in the future where we're going to be together watching Saints, LSU, Pelicans games again. There's going to be an alteration in the way sports is really going to happen. Maybe that's something I can touch on next week in each of the major sports. But we have to be patient, and we're going to all get through this.
Dr. Najy Masri, every week here on Off the Bench, answering your COVID-19 questions, giving you the updates, and you can catch him everywhere, man, right now. Thank you, as always, for your time. We'll talk to you next week. Stay healthy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Doc.